Specialist Jason Bialy with the 1st Medical Brigade will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Chief.
Bow your heads, please. Father, we'd just like to thank you for allowing us to gather here tonight to take care of the business of this council. Father, just ask you continue to bless each and every one of us that's here. Father, give us the guidance and strength of your little sons that you would have us to do, and to do it in the way that you would prefer. Father, just ask you to give us the guidance and strength and the leadership to provide for our citizens and all, and that we do all these things in Jesus' name. We pray. Amen.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you please join me in pledging allegiance to our nation's flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chief, thank you for that prayer. Specialist, thank you. Welcome. Pleased to have you with us today. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to receive a public comment from Mr. William Woods regarding safety concerns by allowing churches to provide overnight accommodations. Mr. Woods.
Mayor, Council, my name is William B. Woods. I live at 214 South 21st Street. I want to open by saying something that has been referred to a number of different times. I've lived in that neighborhood since I was a kid, 60 years, over 60 years. And I have fought to try to keep it, that neighborhood's going down, but I have fought and worked and tried to keep that neighborhood up. What I seen earlier today, I seen some stuff that's happening on the east side that, I'd like to see something like that happen in my neighborhood. But that's getting off the subject, and I want to keep my time as short as I can, and I hope y'all will bear with me. But there's been a point been said that's all that place at 120 South 23rd, the remarks, 21st, the remarks have been that it's always been a shelter. And I was there when that building was built. It was Kingdom Hall Jehovah's Witness in about 1979. Later on, it turned to the Salvation Army, but it was a church. That's all. It never become anything for the homeless that I'm aware of any kind of shape, form, or fashion until about 2 weeks ago. I have real concerns on that point because, like I say, people try to make points that it's always been a shelter, but it's never been that we know of. I guess I'm kidding to Governor Perry, I'm losing my thoughts from time to time. Bear with me. And I'll get on with this. I just wanted to make certain everybody understood it. To my knowledge, it's never been a shelter. Concerns about the consequences of setting by providing overnight accommodations to churches, thereby turning them into homeless shelters. In 2003, my entire surrounding neighborhood was rezoned to family 3, including the Salvation Army Church, with a condition that as the business that's already there which stays on LI until that business changed. And I have a map that shows that. The city of Temple at that time, zoned it in 2003. This property has been used as a church for over 30 years. In 2003, that was grandfathered, trying to change it to a youth shelter as concerned in the past week. Ironically, right before you're going to address this problem with a new ordinance that you plan to vote on today. All the residential zoning ordinance that I've read on the internet has a reading that says to establish, protect, and promote a suitable environment for the family. I feel that providing overnight shelters for people of unknown background, such as possible sexual predators, etc., in other category, contrary to the intent of the residential zoning. I think decisions should seek to protect our children, the elderly, who are the most vulnerable residents of our community, family zone in Temple. There are also many children in this area who wait for buses. Buses run early these days, long before daylight. These kids have to get up all day and go to school. They're out there on the street in the dark. There are many elderly citizens, including my 92-year-old mother, which is about 50 feet from the front door of this business at this church at 120 South 21st Street. She's in that house by herself. I have a strong concern for her. And if I didn't, and if I wasn't trying to protect her and take care of her, I wouldn't be much of a son. I was not notified of any change use in that building. I feel like with a change use of that nature where you have a situation where possibly undesirable people come into that area, you should know about it. You should be notified of it and give you a chance to speak and discuss and protect. But I wasn't getting that. We have a lot of daycares in that area. We have some other things that these homeless people that will be roaming around that could create problems. You know, we have a drugstore right here on the North Side Pharmacy on about 13th Street. If they have drug problems, they have a tendency to go to places you break in. Camp Ridge, that Salvation Army building, since, as I understand, and I was told, since this shelter stuff has been addressed out there, the same type of things that I understand that was going on at Martha's Kitchen, the break-in, going down into the building in the kitchen area to steal food. That's already happened over there. Why do I have a concern? My knowledge of all these changes was an article in the newspaper announced by the city of Temple. It was opening of this property as a shelter. On the Bellcat Tax Road, the legal description of this property is Freeman Heights, Block 19, Lot 12, Church. Not shelter, church. I don't have a crystal ball. And if any one of y'all do, I'd like to talk to you because we can make a lot of money. because I can't tell the future, and I can't tell what's going to happen. Past history of the homeless shelter in Temple, talking about Avenue G. There have been activities of murder, drug activity, fighting, breaking and entering, theft, robbery, prostitution, sexual predators, lottery, and all these kind of things of nature. They have had problems of all kind of nature. The captain at the church told me that there was a recent break-in. I've already described that. What he described was similar to the break-in that I'm aware of at Martha's Kitchen. He said that food, electronic equipment was stolen from the church. We'll put that mouth up. This is the zoning and stuff that I received back in '93, I think it was. And existing businesses to be grandfathered. As I understand existing businesses in the past, that when that business ceased to exist, that zoning went away. And it turns out, and if you look at your map over there for the future of this community, that's supposed to be zoned, it's supposed to be preserved for residential. Because this is so close to Central Avenue and Adams Avenue. The Gateway to Temple. Let's preserve that. Let's clean it up. Let's make it look better. People come in there. You ought to see the traffic on that thing in the morning on Central Avenue, people coming into town. I don't know if it's all people just coming to work, or if it's other business people coming into the communities. I'm proud of Temple. I have family roots here, deep. There used to be a square right down here. My grandpa traded his farm goods there. Many of my relatives had businesses here during the war. They served as soldiers. So my ties to Temple are strong. And I feel as though I've been let down and my mother has been let down. Because she served this community being a nurse for over 20 years at King George's Hospital. She's already 92 years old, living in a house by herself across the street from some place that they want to turn into a shelter. I don't know what the future holds for her. She's very upset. She's very worried. At 92 years old, and I hope she lived to be 100, but I think she should have a peaceful time for the rest of her life that she has. And by stressing her with this across the street from her makes it difficult on me and her. I thank you for your time, and I hope you've listened well and take all my comments into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. This item on our agenda is an opportunity for public comment. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may sign up to do so prior to the meeting. Public comments will be received during this portion of the meeting. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and no discussion or final action will be taken by the city council. Signed up to speak this evening is Dr. Sue Hamby. Dr. Hamby.
My name is Dr. Sue Hamby, and I've lived in Temple since 1980, and I'm here to address the issue that Mr. Woods brought up. 21st Street is not a shelter, it's a warming station, and I'm very proud of our city for designating that. I'm not a paid worker with the Salvation Army. I'm a volunteer with them, with the Feed My Sheep program. And the reason that I'm here tonight is because of Psalms 82:3, which says, "Defend the cause of the weak and the fatherless, maintain the rights of the poor and oppressed, rescue the weak and needy." And that's exactly what the city and the Salvation Army is doing, and I commend them for that. I am so proud of the Salvation Army that they have stepped up to the plate and are helping the homeless, because the homeless are very vulnerable. We talk about being vulnerable. The homeless are vulnerable. And I'm very proud of you as city leaders that you chose to provide a place. This has only been used 2 different nights, and we've only had 1 person there at the Salvation Army. And, you know, when you think about it, that each one of us has a mother or grandmother, you'd hate to think about your parent living in 35-degree weathers out in the park. So, anyway, I want to commend you for that decision. I think it's a wise decision, and it is certainly the right thing to do. Also, I just want to use this time to commend one of your Temple police officers. Last Sunday, while we were feeding there on Avenue G, he brought a bag belonging to Polly. Some of you may not know Polly. She's the homeless lady that's always out here on the benches. And that day, he didn't know it, but she had been taken to the emergency room at Scott and White. She had left her bag outside the women's bathroom of the visitor center. And so this policeman saw it. He knew it belonged to Polly. He picked it up, and he brought it to us there at Feed My Sheep program. And, you know, I thought about that, and that, you know, he could have very easily just dumped it in the trash, because it wasn't of anything of value. But Polly doesn't have many things. And he said, I want this belongs to Polly. I don't know where she is, but I wanted it to be protected. And he did what he chose to do the right thing, just like the city chose to do the right thing in designating the warning stations. I know that the local TV station said that individuals are upset about the Salvation Army, but the fact is the Salvation Army has been around since 1865. And in 2010, they served over 9,000 people in Bell County. They've been a tremendous asset to our community. For those of you who go to First Baptist, they were there when the devastating fire happened. If you lived in Salado, they were there when the floods came. They were there in Jarrow after the tornadoes. They were there in Bastrop for the fires, and they were there for Katrina, and now they're there for the homeless. 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They're providing food, shelter, clothing, and they're sharing God's love. And I'm so excited and thrilled that they have chosen Temple to have their Center of Hope, because it will not only provide lodging, it will provide rehabilitation. And 80% of the beds will be for women and children. The homeless are our neighbors. You know, they may not like it, but they're our neighbors and they're part of our community. And it's up to us to encourage them and to help them and to pray for them and help them get back on their feet to be productive citizens. I work with them every day, and I can tell you that each one of them has a story. There's someone's daughter, there's someone's son, and someone's parent. And they're there, a lot of them, because of bad circumstances. They're not bad people. They've had bad circumstances happen. One of the people you read about recently was Mr. Tudor, Reese Tudor. He has a master's degree from the University of London. Unfortunately, he lived in New Orleans, and so he lost everything. He came here. He wants to work, but he doesn't have transportation, his age, and of course he hasn't worked there. So, anyway, you know, these are the people. And I would encourage you to come down to G Street, 1112 G, and meet him and meet others. We feed every day at 11 o'clock. He's the one who's helping others in wheelchairs, who has a great smile, even though he doesn't have anything to smile about. Or come and meet Johnny. He's 46 years old, but he looks like he's 66 because he has liver cancer, and there's a chance he may lose his leg. Or Mr. S., who's 86 years old and living on the streets. Or the single mom with the 4-year-old and the 9-year-old. They're so busy trying to survive, they're not going to rob. They are just trying to figure out how they can stay warm. And thank God we have leaders in our community that care about the homeless, and thank God we have the Salvation Army that opens doors. And I want to commend you, and they're, talking about churches. They're opening up Family Promise, thank God. And that's going to take families, and that's going to be in churches all over the community. And I appreciate the fact that the churches are willing to step forward and help, because I just really feel like that this is what the Lord wants us to do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Hamby. Next item on our agenda is a proclamation and special recognition. Could I ask the Brigade Commander, Colonel Bruce McVeigh, to come forward along with Command Sergeant Major Michael J. Mullaney and Specialist Jason Biot. It's my privilege tonight to recognize and make this special proclamation to our good friends from the 1st Medical Brigade. We, in the City of Temple, have a special relationship with 1st Medical Brigade, and they have served our communities through many activities that they participated in with all the communities throughout Central Texas. And these men are going overseas here very shortly, and we wanted to take this opportunity to tell them thank you for the great work you've done in our community. We will miss you. We look forward to your return, and we wish you Godspeed. It's my privilege from the Office of the Mayor, on behalf of this community, the City of Temple, to present this proclamation today. Whereas the freedom and security that citizens of the United States enjoy today are the direct results of the sacrificial service and continued vigilance by the United States Armed Forces over the history of our great nation. Whereas the sacrifices that such members of the United States Armed Forces and the family members that support them have made has preserved the liberties that have enriched this nation and made it unique in the world community. Whereas the 1st Medical Brigade of Fort Hood, Texas, is the oldest color-bearing medical unit in the United States Army today, and they have been steadfast guardians of peace and liberty, not only at home, but around the world. And each of the soldiers of the Silver Knights are a source of great strength and pride for our country. And whereas, in recognition and in honor of the men and women of the 1st Medical Brigade on the eve of their deployment, the City of Temple proudly extends to them and their families our sincere appreciation for the invaluable service to this great country. Now, therefore, I, William A. Jones III, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim January the 19th of 2012 a special day to show appreciation to the 1st Medical Brigade and proclaim it as 1st Medical Brigade Day in the City of Temple, Texas. And I encourage all citizens to join together in celebration of the 1st Medical Brigade, who continue to serve in harm's way to ensure lasting peace and service to their country where liberty and justice prevail. Thank you, Godspeed, and in testimony whereof I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, and proudly present this proclamation to the 1st Medical Brigade of Fort Hood, Texas, on this, the 19th day of January, 2012.
I'll be brief. Listen, Mayor, thank you so much, Senator Elder, and our great friends in the Chamber. Temple's been a great support to our brigade for a long time. And as we get ready to go forth, we're about 2 weeks out to head over to Afghanistan to do the medical task force mission for that theater. We know it's going to be busy, unfortunately. Our mission is never a fun mission, but last year alone, you look at statistics, over almost 6,000 wounded, almost 600 dead, and a slew of mental health issues and things we'll be dealing with throughout this year. We know it's a busy year. We know we've got the right team. But more important, we know we've got Temple behind our families. And that's critical for us as we go forward and leave our families behind, which the good news for us is it's only 9 months now instead of a year. So thank God to our leaders up above. They've cut down about run out of days off on deployment. So the good news is we need 2 weeks, we'll be back by Thanksgiving, and so we look forward to coming back. The 3rd of February, if anybody can make it out, in front of First Cat headquarters will be our official casing ceremony. So we'd like to send an open invitation to anybody in Temple to be there. On the case on colors, and watch the Super Bowl, and then get on the plane as we go. So again, we truly thank you for this honor. We are very honored by this. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate them taking the time. I know they have a very busy schedule as they get ready, and they have another event in town this evening to get to, so glad we could get them in here tonight. Next on the agenda is to receive a report of the Temple Economic Development Corporation, their annual report. Mr. Lee Peterson. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Mayor Jones, Councilwoman Moore, Councilman Dunn, Councilman Cloud, Tracy, David, Jonathan, Lacey. Tracy, I duck everywhere I can not to have to do this, and somehow you get me here anyway. So I want to thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. We would like to tell you that we have many partners in economic development in Temple. Almost everyone in the city works to help us grow this economy and create jobs. But without you and all your help, your assistance and your support, we would not accomplish much. So thanks to all of you. A few extras of you who are not sitting at the podium, Nicole, Michael, Chief Wallace, and Don Bond and Richard Terrio, who work with us almost every day. We appreciate them very much, and we thank you all for being such great leaders and allowing us to have such excellent folks to work with. We appreciate that very much. You folks appoint our board of directors, and you're doing a pretty good job. Oh, I have a clicker. I forgot. I'm supposed to run this. That's okay. So remind me if I need to change the picture. I sometimes go out and forget to do that. I would like to introduce our board of directors, some of who are in attendance this evening. Mayor Bill Jones from Material Transportation Company, Perry Cloud from Cloud Construction, Bob Browder, who is chairman of the Temple Reinvestment Zone, Greg Strasburger of Strasburger Enterprises, Pat Patterson, Patco Construction, the current chairman of TEDC, Hugh Shine Richardson Investments, Jim Kent with McLean Company, David Blackburn, City Manager, City of Temple, George Lee, Horning Toad Harley Davidson, Greg Rhodes, To The Top LLC, Clayton McLean III with Classic Foods, Pat Curry with Scott & White Healthcare, Kenny Martin, World Class Management, and KLM Holdings Limited, Charlie Belson, who is in the audience, Charlie with EBCO Construction, and Peter Brunwald with Scott & White Healthcare. We appreciate your appointment of those people to our board, and we want to thank them for their undying volunteer support. I'd like to remind everybody they don't get paid for this. This is a fun job for them to spend hundreds of hours every year trying to help us grow this community. So we appreciate our board, and thank you very much for those appointments. I am fortunate at this point in my life to have the best economic development staff in the world. We have in TEDC Angela Ingram, who is our operations manager, couldn't be here this evening. Bridget Hines. Bridget is our, Bridget, stand up so people can see. You're so short they can't see you sitting there. Bridget Hines, who is our project manager and research director. Elizabeth Langier, who is our director of marketing. And Mr. Charlie Aarons, who is our director of business retention, expansion, and business development. Very, very fortunate to have the staff. They are all pit bulls in training. It's an inside joke. Once upon a time, somebody told me if you can't measure what you're doing, how do you know what you're accomplishing? So we have measurements at TEDC. Those measurements are growth in sales tax revenue, growth in number of new jobs, growth in per capita income, an increase in taxable, real, and personal property, And before I'm finished tonight, I'll have 3 or 4 of those numbers for you. Our budget in fiscal year 2012, as Mr. Blackburn is so fond of saying, we are a people company. The people that I introduced to you are the ones who do economic development every day, who fight that fight for you, who are aggressive and out there trying to make things happen. So 46% of our budget is spent on human resources, 16% running the office, 25% on marketing, both to existing companies and new companies trying to come to Temple. And the other ones I won't mention, but the 5% is spent with our partners, and most of those expenditures are a cooperative agreement with Temple College for a workforce training director, and, what's the word, Elizabeth? And a contribution to Temple College, a contribution to the Temple Business Incubator. So that's kind of where everything goes. We do a wide variety of things to try and improve people's image of Temple. We are constantly involved in communications and publications. Occasionally you'll see an article in the Temple Daily Telegram. Once in a while, Charlie can get one in the Austin Business Journal. We have a monthly e-newsletter that goes out to 620 readers every month. We are in the final phase of a targeted industry study that will allow us to focus more on our targets in different areas, also help us in creating a new marketing plan, and we're looking forward to the finish of that, allowing us to move in new directions for some of the things that we do. With my Genius Technology staff, we are now involved in social media everywhere in the world. We are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, and we're on YouTube. Don't ask me how to get there, but they all know. Our website, www.choosetemple.com, 20,899 folks viewed our website. There were 5,265 unique viewers, and a unique viewer is somebody who comes back and goes directly into a specific part of our website looking for specific information. Average of 2 minutes and 26 seconds spent on our website, and we will have in the next 90 days a brand new website rolled out for you all. The heart and soul of any economic development program is business retention and expansion. If the people in your community are not doing well, you're sure not going to get anybody else to come. So we do a variety of things to keep in very close touch with our existing industry, to build relationships with those folks so when they need us, they come and see us. We have quarterly existing industry meetings. We have a business appreciation luncheon, which is on the 26th of March? 26th April, sorry. 26th of April, we will have an economist from Wells Fargo who will tell us what the world's going to do in the near term and long term. I continually meet with CEOs almost weekly, at least monthly, and try to meet with every CEO in the park in a year's time. Team TEDC takes industry tours so everyone in the office understands what Texas Hydraulics does and what Walmart Distribution Center does, what HEB Distribution Center does, so that we all understand them better, allowing us to help them. We've launched a new computer software program called Synchronous. Charlie and Bridget are out interviewing our industries, talking to them, gathering information to allow us to help them, hopefully more than we have up to this point. Business recruitment is the place where you get your name in the paper. When you bring a new company like HEB to Temple, everybody wants to talk about it. It is the most difficult part of economic development to get somebody like HEB to come to Temple and invest, at this point, I think about $70 million in a facility out in our industrial park is a big challenge. People don't just walk into town and invest that kind of money. And a big part of that is the leadership that this group shows for this community. We have sustained, right, consistent leaders, and you really need to know how important that is to the people that we work with. We were involved in 5 trade shows last year in some way, exhibited in some of them. The metal manufacturers industry, supply chain and logistics, target plastic manufacturers, material handling companies, commercial real estate companies who we work with all over the United States, aircraft and space manufacturing, and healthcare. We go to a variety of conferences and meet and build relationships with real estate executives and site selectors We belong to Industrial Asset Management Council. Texas one is, what's our governor's name? Perry. I'm related to you as well. Governor Perry has created to help us market the state of Texas. We go on 8 to 10 trips a year with that group, extolling the virtues of Texas. We belong to the North Texas Commercial Realtors Association of Realtors, the Central Texas Association of Realtors, and Cornet, another national real estate group. In 2011, Temple Chamber of Commerce, the City of Temple, and Scott White Hospital joined together and worked with a company called Buxton to create a retail study. What we came out of with in that study was there are some areas of our economy that lots of our money is being spent in other communities rather than being spent in Temple. So we had specific areas that we want to try to look at to grow our retail economy. We were very fortunate last year to have Kohl's Company come to Temple. Took a 66,000 square foot building that's been vacant somewhere between 11 and 15 years. Redid that building and are operating nicely out of there with about 200 new employees. A little grocery store on General Bruce Drive next to the Loop, Natural Grocers, has lots of natural grocery products. Is a very nice addition to Temple. A company named Bob Mills Furniture out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, has purchased the former Lax building and is in the process currently of roofing and remodeling that building with the hope to open a very, very nice furniture store end of March, first part of April. And so we were very happy. One of our concerns about the former Lax building is that it would sit empty for a long period of time. Tracy and I have been talking about the sales tax revenue. We believe that the sales tax revenue increased about 6% in 2011. Tracy? Correct. So we did see an increase in our sales tax. Many of the people in the industrial park believe at this point that a flat year wasn't bad. So Temple did really well in growing their sales tax. Projects that we've worked with the TDC are really tough for us to put timelines on because so many of our projects go many years before they're completed. But some that were completed in 2011, Pactiv, large plastics company out in the industrial park, invested about $18.5 million in new equipment, created 87 new jobs. AkzoNobel, the largest paint company in the world, has their adhesives operation in Temple. For some of you who do work around the house, liquid nails are all built in Temple, Texas. AkzoNobel brought another process from Montreal, Canada, about $5 million in new equipment and about 15 new employees. Our friends at Lock Joint Tube of Texas, the big building that you see with all the storage in it was built last year by Lock Joint Tube. That is both for finished product and steel coils that come in that they make a variety of things out of. About 17 new jobs and about $20 million in investment. Real interesting operation is the lower one where you see Bradley fighting vehicles coming off Temple and Central Texas Railroad at our transloading site in the industrial park. British Aerospace has leased 70,000 square feet in the industrial park and are modifying Bradley fighting vehicles, putting new, more safer products on those, hopefully to save some lives of our soldiers. They currently have about 70 employees and probably will get to somewhere around 100, but an extremely interesting operation. One of our local companies, Fikes Wholesale, has built a new corporate headquarters in Airport Park. I don't know if you ever get out to the western part of the city, but if you ever happen to see Fikes' new corporate headquarters, 42,000 square feet, we'll add about 10 jobs, and they just bought another group of convenience stores, so maybe they'll add 20 jobs. I don't know. We're extremely, extremely fortunate to have the headquarters of that fine company here in Temple. Up in the left-hand corner, a company out of Waterloo, Iowa, Northland Products in Temple, Texas, called Nordtech Lubricants Distribution Solutions, about a 66,000 square foot building. They buy a variety of products from refineries, further process those products into lubricants and coolants for manufacturers and other people. About 15 new jobs of that project. They are finishing the final run-through in the next couple of weeks. Production will begin the last week of January, the first week of February. In the bottom picture, one of our favorites, HEB has decided to build another 300,000 square feet of perishable storage in Temple. Along with a $20 million investment will go 40 new jobs, and we are so pleased that we see HEB continue to grow and move forward in Temple. That will be expanding for a long period of time. Unemployment rate in Temple, and I know that's hard to see, but if you look at the top line, that is national unemployment. The purple line is the state of Texas unemployment. The green line is Temple Fort Hood MSA unemployment, and the red line at the bottom is Temple. What I want you to see out of that, through this extremely difficult time we've gone through, the city of Temple's unemployment has been much less than everybody else's. Although it certainly hasn't been good, it has been much less than both the nation, the state, or the MSA as a whole. In 2011, we helped create 411 new jobs. So, to recap our measurements, new investment of $49.3 million, 411 new jobs, about a 6% increase in sales tax, and the per capita income number we don't get till sometime this year, so we don't have that for you. We apologize. As I started this, whatever Tracy wants to call it, report, I mentioned the folks that we work with, and I am deadly serious about that, about the Temple Council and staff and how appreciative we are. The Temple Reinvestment Zone is the backbone of our economic development program. Has built parks, put in rail, put in roads, put in streets, put in sewer, put in water, to allow us to have property to bring these people to Temple to create jobs and grow our economy. The Temple Health and Bioscience District, the Temple Chamber of Commerce, Temple Industrial Foundation, Temple Community College, Bell County Commissioners, Workforce Solutions of Central Texas, and the one we forgot, Temple Independent School District. We thank everyone and appreciate their help, and I will be more than happy to answer any question that I might be able to answer for you.
Lee, thank you. Great presentation. Council, questions for Mr. Peterson? Thank you very much. Thanks, staff. Thanks so much for being here, Charlie, Bridget, Elizabeth. Great job.
Can I just say, just also a quick word, but I want to say thanks also. We work, as the President indicated there, we work with PDC and their staff frequently, day in, day out. It's trying to get a day where there's not some conversation that goes by. So it's a very, very close relationship. We have, as council knows, in your operating budgets, year in, year out, we fund our economic development services for the city is funded through an agreement we have with TEDC. And it's a partnership that has worked well, as the reports indicated, for many, many, many years. But one reason that he was here today was, again, in accordance with that agreement and the budget that you consider each year. We thought it's important for you to get an overview at least once a year, so that as you go into this next round of budget, you have some idea of what that product is yielding for you. And I would concur with his comments. When you look across the country and across the state and look at what we have done here, and it truly is a we. It's multiple entities working together in the community. It has been significant, especially in light of the current economy. So I want to say thanks also.
To Pat Patterson, Charlie, the two board members that are here, in addition to Terry and David, of course, and I get to work with you guys too. Thanks for all you do. It really helps to bring this team together, the leadership and guidance that comes from the board. So thanks. Lee, thanks as always. Thank you. Appreciate the report. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda. All items listed under this section of the consent are considered to be routine by the City Council, and they may be enacted in one motion. If discussion is desired by the council on the item, it is removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member, and it will be considered separately. This is items 6A through I tonight. I know already we want to pull item F for special consideration. Are there other items, A through I, that you wish to be removed from consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of items 6A through I, less item 6F. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second for approval of the consent agenda as indicated. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 6F is a second reading. It's to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing amendments to Articles 3, 5, 6, and 11 of the Unified Development Code to allow the City Council to add a time limit to the approval of conditional use of a conditional use permit, add transitional shelter as conditional uses in the use table, increases the setbacks for street trees in the T-Med zoning district, amends sidewalk and sign requirements in the Interstate 35 corridor overlay zoning district, and to establish definitions related to such standards. I think all we want to do this evening is pull one of those items, which is receiving some additional work. I believe that is Article 6 under I-35 signs. Council, do you require any other presentation on this item? No. If not, I'll entertain a motion for 6F, and I think you've got some wording in front of you that will make that clear.
I'd like to make a motion approving item F, Articles 3, 5, 6, and 11, 3, 5, and 11 as presented, and attachments 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, excluding attachments 5, which is Article 6, I-35 signs.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Ms. Spear?
I'm sorry, can you please approve Article 6 as well, but excluding the item in attachment 5? I have 3 items in Article 6, I apologize.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I'll amend that to including Articles 3, 5, 6, and 11.
Okay, and do you have a second to that amendment?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take a vote now on the amendment, since we had a motion second to begin with. So, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. And now on the item itself, item 6F, as amended. No further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Is this the table?
No, this is approved. This is approved.
Okay.
With the change.
Aye.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. And so we'll have that Article 6 brought back to us at another time. And I think we'll probably end up seeing that in a workshop here before we get to consider that for action. On to item 7 of the regular agenda, consider adopting a resolution authorizing the final plat of Lake Point Phase 2, a 132.85-acre, 347-lot, single-family residential, 1-lot commercial, and 1-lot multifamily residential subdivision, with a requested exception to the Unified Development Code, Section 8.2.4, regarding utility easements, located southeast of State Highway 317 and Prairie View Road. Mr. Mabry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Here's an aerial or a vicinity map showing the subject property near the intersection of State Highway 317 and Prairie View Road. The Development Review Committee deemed this plat administratively complete on December 9th, 2011. There are 3 zoning districts, as mentioned in the item description, on 132.85 acres with 347 residential lots that would be, and a private park as well, that would be maintained by the Homeowners Association. There's a trail easement that you'll see in a moment on one of the slides that I'm showing along the easternmost drainage area in the plat. The multifamily and commercial lots that are proposed are proposed to be developed very soon. I think that you'll see more activity in the single-family lots that are proposed once approval is achieved. There is, in addition, an abandonment and realignment of a wastewater easement that's also part of this plat. This case was tabled at the previous City Council meeting as a courtesy to the applicant, but we are ready to, I think, present and make a decision on this today. This is the western half of the plat. The road at the top of the screen is State Highway 317. It's a large subdivision, so it's on 2 different screens here, showing the commercial zoning in pink, the multifamily in orange, and the park in green there. This is the eastern portion of this subdivision. There's still the end of the park and part of the multifamily too there at the top, and then as I mentioned, the trail along the eastern side and within the drainage easement. There were some amendments and edits to the park plan that staff requested that weren't big enough to require any kind of resubmittal or re-examination by the Development Review Committee, and the applicant has agreed to those changes, which are to have a specific wording about the payment of park fees for the apartment complex on this plat, and to also add some more parking spaces to the park plan, and to provide the required landscaping that would be needed for this park. The exception that's being requested has to do with utility easements. This is an enlargement of a portion of the plat showing again the multifamily in orange and the commercial in pink. There's a 100-foot Brazos Electric Power Cooperative transmission easement that runs through the property. Working with Encore and their local representative, we've learned that distribution lines and distribution electrical equipment cannot be located within a transmission easement. So for purposes of distributing power to the commercial and multifamily lots, there's just only having the transmission easement there is not enough. There needs to be an actual distribution easement that would allow the distribution equipment. There's a portion of the Unified Development Code that states that any lot that doesn't have an alley must contain or have access to a utility easement at the rear, as determined and required by the city engineer or other public utility providers. And this is a 15-foot wide easement that the UDC requires. And our representative from Encore has made the request that the 15-foot distribution easement be added to the subdivision. The applicant has expressed a disagreement with that requirement, and that's why we are the plat is currently being presented to you now because of the requested exception. Staff has recommended to you and to City Council and to the Planning and Zoning Commission approval of this final plat with the added notes about park fees on the park plan and about adding additional parking spaces and adhering to the landscaping requirements in the Unified Development Code, as I'm showing on the screen, and are recommending denial of the requested exception related to the easement. On December 19th, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-1 to recommend approval of the plat and approval of the requested exception. That concludes my presentation to you on this plat. This does not require a public hearing, but a representative of the developer is here in the audience. I'd be happy to address any questions that you all might have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mabry. Council, questions for Mr. Mabry or staff?
Mr. Mabry, just to be clear, the public utility easements that you're talking about are available to any public utilities, water, telephone, or anything, is that correct?
Correct.
And if another easement was negotiated with the developer and Encore somebody later, that could happen without plat approval, is that correct?
Can you repeat that?
If another easement was negotiated through the property, in addition to these easements that the city is requiring, that would not need to go back before that process.
No.
Other questions? Developer representative, you want to comment?
A few months.
You'd identify yourself for the record, please.
Garrett Nordike.
Thanks.
Garrett Nordike, 3000 Illinois Avenue, W&T Development. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for your time and consideration of this matter. Several months ago, a representative from Encore visited my office and he asked us for an easement. This was still when we're in the middle of the planning process. We may have discussed it with the city, but we certainly had submitted an application. And he explained to us that they're rethinking their distribution system in the area of 317 and 2305. And he asked us for an easement along behind what we're calling the commercial property and along the multifamily property. And there were some other things that we were asking from Encore. We said, we'd like to work with you. Is there any way you can work with us on these issues? He said, let me talk to a few people. I'll get back with you. We never heard back from them. The next thing we knew is that they were requesting this easement as part of the plat. Our concern is that they're using an ordinance, one of Temple's ordinances, to condemn an easement that's not necessary for this project. What they've told us, and I believe they've also told city staff, is that in order to serve the commercial property and multifamily property, they need this easement behind the commercial and multifamily property. This is a view from Google Earth. It's the church on 317. There's a power line that runs along the west side of 317. I've drawn in the yellow line to kind of highlight where it is. It's hard to see in this image, but currently tracks on the east side of 317 are served from the power line on the west side of 317. Our commercial track and multifamily track will be no different. We don't expect our commercial and multifamily to develop in the near future, but when that time does come and we have to request a service from Encore, we'll continue these negotiations. We've received planning and zoning support on this. I ask that we also receive your support. Thank you for your time, and I'd like to address any questions you may have.
Can we go back to the plat itself? No, you were fine right there. Back one more. The gray area is the transmission line easement that Encore has or is looking for?
Has.
They have?
Currently has, yes.
Okay. And WB is wanting to use that corridor? No, okay.
No, we don't want to. They're requesting an additional easement, and that concerns me even a little bit more. Encore has multiple companies that they work with, and there's a distribution system, transmission system. The transmission system won't even give the distribution system the authority to use their own easements. They're asking for us to give them an additional easement.
And the way I'm hearing the ordinance that we have on the books that you're asking for an exception for, asks for, or requires that 15 feet on each property, the back of each property, if there's no alley.
Correct.
Okay, so that's, I would assume, throughout the entire plat, that is where that easement is. And so you're asking for an exception of no easement throughout the entire development. Am I understanding the request and the ordinance?
I believe from talking with Garrett and being involved in the project that WB is requesting to not have to do a public utility easement that would serve distribution of electricity along this transmission easement, and instead would be relying on some other method of providing electricity to the multifamily and commercial lots. We've heard before that there are other options that could allow electricity to serve these properties, but from going off of our regulations in our code, this is the way that the easements are to be laid out, and so we're following our rules in our Unified Development Code.
And this is for more than just an electric utility, this 15-foot easement, is it not? Would it be
usually easements are, if they're just called public utility easements, are open for various types of public utilities, which would include electrical.
So if we grant this exception, then this entire development has no easements behind the properties?
Not the entire ones. The multifamily 2 and commercial are the ones that are affected.
Okay. Okay, strictly the MF2 and the commercial.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me ask, why is staff objecting to that?
It's, from our end, too open-ended. I mean, Garrett could work out for sure something with the Encore people after plat approval, but in our mind, approving it as is leaving multifamily 2 and commercial tracts without any certain source of public utility and electricity, without having the easement in place that the UDC calls for.
How would they develop if they didn't have that at some point?
I'll probably defer to Garrett to go over those options.
Okay.
Do you want to go through this again?
This is a distribution plan that was provided to us by Encore. This shows exactly how electricity is going to be routed through our subdivision. It's coming off North Prairie View Road, and we have loops going down our roads, looping back to the north, and then tying in this pattern. They don't have any distribution system that's planned for the commercial and for the multifamily tract. What they're asking for is an easement, not for serving electricity to this property that the plat's being submitted to you for. The easement they're requesting is to change their distribution system so that they can serve other areas. And we're willing to work with them, but they're using Temple's ordinance to condemn easements from us. Easements that aren't necessary to serve the commercial or the multifamily tract.
And so you're willing to negotiate with them to sell them those easements across your properties at some point?
We haven't talked money. We just said there's something we'd love to, like you to do for us. They've asked us to give them an easement, and that's where the end of the conversation.
Any other questions?
Mayor, just a question, and I think it just follows yours. I'm still not clear on how utility services will be provided to the multifamily and commercial. I understand the layout for the residential, but without this easement, how will that be provided?
From the west side of 317. This is a picture of the church on 317, just south of our proposed project. There's a power line on the west side of 317. This power line is connected to the church across 317.
And that's how other utilities besides electricity would be provided?
No, other utilities can be provided to the commercial and the multifamily tract through the right-of-way, the main road that feeds our subdivision. There's a water line in front, and there's also a sanitary sewer line that goes right through our commercial tract. Then there's also a sanitary sewer line that runs adjacent to the multifamily. So road utilities isn't an issue.
So you'll be able to get your properties served. You'll certainly make sure that they can serve your properties. It's a matter of, if we don't grant this easement, then bringing utilities across your property without further negotiations is the issue.
It's for their distribution system.
Okay. All right.
I was just going to make sure the Public Works concurred with those comments in terms of the other utility services. Okay. Be available. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to point out, besides the wet utilities, which we agree we can serve via other avenues, and I'd probably ask the question to legal about public utilities, because I think AT&T, maybe fiber optics, maybe some other interests might be involved with serving, public utility easements. So.
Yeah, the cable, phone are often on the same easements, on the same poles.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Any other questions for Mr. Newman? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Council, any other questions, or is there desired action on this item?
I would make a motion to accept the resolution authorizing final plat of Lake Point 2 subdivision with the notes regarding the park areas and the like, but not granting the requested exception to the Unified Development Code for the utilities. Second.
We have a motion and a second for the motion as presented by staff and recommended by staff for the park fee and multifamily development to provide at least 10 parking places and to deny the recommended exception or the requested exception to the UDC 8.2.4. Any additional comment or question? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 8 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing the final plat of Westfield Development Phase 8, a subdivision with 71 single-family residential lots and one approximately 2.25-acre non-residential lot, with developers' requested exception to the Unified Development Code, Section 8.2.3, requiring sidewalks located at the southeast corner of Stone Hollow Drive and North Pea Ridge Road. Mr. Mabry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an aerial of the subject property shaded in orange. It's another phase of the overall Westfield development. It ends up being at the corner of Pea Ridge and Stone Hollow Drive, just west of the Tarver Elementary School. Plat is being shown on the screen right now, and it's part of your packets. The DRC deemed the plat administratively complete on December 22nd, 2011. There's GR and single-family 3 zoning within the bounds of the plat. The exception request to the Unified Development Code has to do with requiring a 4-foot sidewalk along North Pea Ridge Road, which is a collector road. The applicant just very recently submitted an alternative sidewalk alignment that staff supports. What I'm presenting to you is different from what was in your written staff report due to receiving this alternative alignment just yesterday. So we originally were not in favor of the exception request, but having seen the alternative alignment that I'm about to show you, we do support the exception request now. This is a segment of the plat that I just showed you with Tarver Elementary labeled, as you can see on the right-hand side of the image. There are existing sidewalks like this along just to the outside of the bounds of this plat and just to its east. As you can see, the solid green line, and then there's another solid green line which represents another 5-foot sidewalk leading up to Tarver Elementary. So there's kind of a gap in between that the developer is proposing to fill in with this plat. Before I get to that, though, what's required is, based on the Unified Development Code, is a 4-foot sidewalk here along Pea Ridge, shown with red dots. The developer is proposing to fill in the existing 5-foot sidewalk along these local streets interior to the subdivision with the green dotted lines, so that there would be a path, a pedestrian path that would connect many of the residents of this phase and previous phases of the development with the elementary school. The developer is also working with Belton ISD and Tarver from what I've learned speaking with his engineer to fill in this gap where Tarver is. This is outside of this plat, but filling in the gap where Tarver is to complete this sidewalk all the way up to Stone Hollow. And while that's not part of his proposal for this alternative alignment, it is something that he is aware of and is working with the school district to do. On January 3rd of this year, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the final plat with the developer's requested exception to the sidewalk requirements. As I said earlier, prior to seeing the applicant's alternative proposal, staff was recommending denial of the exception request, but now we do recommend approval of the exception request. which is an installation of a 5-foot wide sidewalk along the north sides of lots 3 through 9, block 11 of this subdivision, and along the west side of block 20, block 12 of this subdivision. That just reflects the dotted green line I showed you in the previous slide. The proposed sidewalk would be required at the time of building permit for the homes for each of the lots that would be affected. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer your questions. There is a representative for the developer here, if anything, if you have any questions for her as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mabry. Council, questions on this request? There being none, I'll entertain a motion on item 8. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second for approval of the final plat of Westfield Development Phase 8 as presented, with the exception as recommended by staff. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 9 is board appointments. Consider adopting a resolution appointing 2 members to fill unexpired terms through September 1st of 2012 and September 1st of 2014 to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We received one application that all received in our last meeting from Mr. Adam Sarholtz, and would entertain a motion, if it's your pleasure, to make that appointment at this time. He's the only one we have for consideration, and your choice if you wish to make that proposal to which term you would like to propose him to serve in. He's an attorney who's fairly new to the community, but's become actively involved in a number of issues related to chamber activities and other matters for the city. No motion at this time, then we'll leave that item table for our next meeting, and we'll bring forth those matters to consider in the future. So, if there's no other business for the City Temple today, we are adjourned. Thank you for your attendance and your participation today.